Evening, and I'm so happy that you're watching the replay. Actually, it's the summary replay of the first class in the journey of mastery of loving, the journey of conscious relationships. This is a summary replay of the course when it launched on January 21st, because we decided to protect the confidentiality of the participants and the content they shared, which is so important for understanding our relational patterns, and we get to protect everybody's stories. That's important. So, good evening, and this is still going to be interactive, even though it's a summary. So, get ready for a chock full of information. And first, we'll get into what's with the 6 month course, Claudine, right? I'll tell you what, we don't learn how we love, how we learned loving in a session, in a class. We learn it in life. We learn it by interacting, connecting with people. It Life's a classroom, and that's what this is. This is the opportunity for us to be in community and learn our loving patterns, share them vulnerably, be witnessed, which was incredible in our class the other night, and still know that we're lovable, accepted for how we are. So this is why I made an interactive course and I made it 6 months, so that we can come to understand ourselves as we reveal more and more, as we cultivate love for ourselves, we deepen and cultivate that love for others. It's also interactive because it makes it more fun, and we don't learn in isolation, right? Loving is a communal experience between you and yourself, but we actually get a lot more of how we love ourselves and love others by being in relationship. So let's dive in. What's the purpose of this course? It really was to take you on a journey of discovery, to look at our patterns in our earliest relationship. And we're going to do that in hopefully an illuminating way. That would be like what I'd really love for you is if you could see it. Once we could see a pattern, call it what it is. I'd like to do this outside ourselves. So I don't go, oh, I keep doing that. You keep doing that. No, and we have something we could talk about objectively, that I attract this behavior, you attract this, and that's what we create together, makes it easier and less defensive for everybody. We're not pointing fingers at each other. We're looking at how do we solve, work with, nurture, give grace to this pattern. It's like, if that makes sense to you, it will as we go along. Okay, so the first class in this journey is understanding your early love. It's really about attachment styles and our familiar imprints. And I decided to start there because this is loving around our lifetime. So we're starting in our infancy and childhood. We will work in the series of the 6 months. How do we love as adolescents? How do we love as adults? Then how do we have mature erotic love? Right? There's different types of love, even friendship love. So we'll be looking at that because the patterns we have, though more intense with our loved one, meaning our beloved, our spouse, our partner, our girlfriend, our boyfriend, the fact is, these patterns come up in our friendships, they come up in our family. So this is not just how do I have a better relationship with, my husband or wife. It's how do I have a better relationship with myself and those around me. Okay. So let's dive in. Talk a lot about the attachment styles in life. I feel like social media has been filled with that. And I think that's really good. It's giving people a different way of looking at it. I just want to give you a heads up. The next class is going to be February 18th, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time to 9:30. And the course series runs until June 21st. I guess that's also a Tuesday, every third Tuesday. So I look forward to seeing you here for all of those classes. And they are 2 hours long. You will get a reminder of these, so don't worry, I don't take any notes here right now. Just keep going. So who am I? Well, I'd like to know who you are, but since this is going to be one way tonight, I don't get to learn a little bit more about you. But I'll say who I am is, I've been in the behavioral science, so to say, human design for over 32 years. Well, I've been alive for 57, so maybe 57 years. But I've been a social worker, psychotherapist, a coach, an executive, a partner, a daughter, a sister, a friend, all of my life. I bring that to my clients, either in corporate America and my relationship coaching, or when I'm working with someone who wants to date and attract their soulmate, their special relationship, but they recognize there's things going on with themselves. So my work is really focused on two prong. One is how do we heal our childhood wounds so that I can show up the best version of myself now. And I also work with people who want this vision in their relationship. So, what are the habits, practices, communication styles that are also going to get us there? So, I've been studying people in the lifelong and I have lived experience. I'm not someone who hasn't walked the walk. I've been in coaching and psychotherapy, in group therapy, right? Experiential workshops, leadership workshops. I'm a trainer, facilitator. And what's that mean in the end? That I'm a compassionate listener. I understand emotionality and the scope of emotions that we have access to. I like to bring that understanding and compassion to all of my clients and every class that I do. So let's dive in, shall we? Okay. Today's goal, we're going to work on attachment theory styles, talk about our childhood experiences and how they impact our adult relationship. Begin to identify patterns. If we identify, can we make a shift somewhere? And then how can we practice a little inner self-compassion? That's really, really important. I think one of the things that I'm always curious about is like what brings people to classes, this course? What brings people to a session? What makes people click on an ad? Maybe stop and look at something on social media, right? There's something that caught our curiosity. That is one of the greatest gifts we can have. So that's what I'm going to invite you into is being in the space of curiosity about yourself, about others. Often we think like, I get them, I know them, they've been doing that. They're always like that. Right? We put ourselves and others in a box. And once we do that, we close possibilities and we can't see them beyond how we think they are. And that's the invitation is can you move beyond how you think you have yourself or somebody else in this case? Right? And let's see where we go with this. Um, so I would tell you, I'd be curious too. Here it is, like your relationship status. Hmm? Yeah, right. We don't talk about that a lot, but I notice that people don't use those words much anymore. Hmm. Is it complicated, or do we just like saying single, divorced, married? I don't know, but we all came into this world through a person, but we came in solo. I'd like to go back to that place. I'd like to connect you for a little while to your inner child. Now we even go back further to your inner infant. Because that came along a lot sooner, right? So I'm going to ask if you allow me to read this. What we really are doing is talking about love. I want to read something about love from, if you let me. Love is a deep, authentic connection that nurtures all of our senses, our sense of safety, belonging, accepted. It's an action and it's a way of being rooted in empathy, compassion, and a willingness to see and honor another's humility and humanity while holding space for our own. Right? The truest form is not about perfection. It truly is about showing up, allowing ourselves to be seen, sometimes in our messiest way, sometimes in our perfect way, meaning we're all whole and complete. So I want you to hold that definition as we go through this class tonight, right? Because it isn't something that we come in with a handbook. We actually learn it through minor and major interactions, experiences. We register in our body. We have thoughts that are loving, words that are loving. So love is collected and experienced. And then we start to create our own framework, what that is. I want to start with this. Would you give me the opportunity to just ask you to close your eyes, like maybe a quick meditation right now, visual imagery? Because I would welcome you to slow down. Maybe stop where you are and close your eyes and take a few deep breaths. Breathe through your nose, out through your mouth. Do that a few times together. Inhale through your nose, out through your mouth. Or take the breath. I welcome you to relax your shoulders, let your jaw soften, allow your body to feel supported wherever you are. You're sitting, let yourself feel the support of your back being held, your buttocks, your thighs. Let the soles of your feet feel the floor as if like a vine connected to earth. You are grounded. You are strong, steady like a tree. In this moment, it's okay for you to allow yourself to be right here. So begin breathing in and out, and finding your pace. I invite you to go a little deeper with your breath. Hmm. And as your breath is steadying, your body relaxes. I want you to go back and imagine the breath in the moment of conception, where you planned conception. Was it a night of spontaneity? Was it a night of fun? Was it a night of conflict? Was there a deep connection between your parents? Were they just newly knowing each other, deeply in love? Or was it a decision to have a child? And that first breath and moment of life for some is also helped through the medical societies and communities, right? If you're in vitro, like there's a moment of intentionality that your life came into existence. I want you to ground there for a moment. You were a spark of energy at one time. And that energy became some body that breathed, heartbeats that kept developing and growing. You're cradled in a womb. You're surrounded by warmth and safety. Why would you want to get out of there? You were nourished, cared for. Every need was contained inside the womb. I want you to feel the steadiness of your heartbeat. That heartbeat was in rhythm at one time with your mother, your birth mother. Right? There was this synergy between the two of you, the foundation of love and connection before your birth. You were spoken to, or maybe somebody held their hand on your mother's tummy or womb. You were listened to by doctors. Pictures were taken of sonograms, seeing you grow. Yeah. And the time came for you to leave, be birthed into this world. Yeah, there may have been, you know, you were maybe born in a hospital or in a pool of water, a birth doula or a nurse or doctor. But once you came out of your mother's body, people attended to you. They wrapped you in cloth. They washed you. Pictures and fingerprints of your hands and your feet. And then they cradled you. All went well. One or both of your parents were staring at you, looking into your eyes for the first time, gazing upon your amazing face. Imagine the sounds, sense of touch and smell that you had at that moment. Maybe there was moments of longing and need. Could have also been scared. All that occurred. That magical moment. Just notice. Comes up for you to think about that. First few moments of life. It feels okay for you, I would offer some love and compassion to that infant version of you, that part of you that was so tender, vulnerable, soft. You want to say you were loved the minute you came into this world, that you are safe, you are protected, you are enough. May that be what you always know, little one. Pause here. Think about what you would want to say to your inner infant. Let that settle into your body. Hmm. Yeah. Thank you for allowing me that. When you're ready, you can bring your awareness back to wherever you are. If you're sitting in a chair, if you're walking around your kitchen, take a few moments and just breathe into this moment. Take some final breaths. And you can slowly go back to whatever you're going. And I would say this, you go back there. Anything you noticed? Anything you'll remember early on in your life? Do you have a favorite toy? Childhood memory? Let's share one for you. I remember being very, very young before nursery school. And I had a pale yellow blanket, super soft, to touch it like this. And it had pictures of little puppy heads, just the face of puppies. That was one of the most comforting and soothing things I had. I took it from nursery school or pre-nursery school, I don't know, home. Like that was my transitional object. I brought comfort and safety with me everywhere. Do you have something like that? Mm, I bet you there's a story if you ask or if you remember. That's good stuff. Yeah, right. And that's what generates. I mean, you may think of something or a toy that doesn't generate a soft feeling. That's okay. You may have a story about something that was your favorite toy that got destroyed, or something that you always wanted and you couldn't have. Mm. I love a story my aunt tells about when I was younger. She used to come over. I was the first female born to my family's life. And in that generation, my aunt would come over to feed me, but she wore hoops. And sure enough, I was known for pulling those hoops off, right? They were exciting to me. I'm sure I was looking at this sparkly thing as an infant, and that was what I always grabbed for, right? It took her a long time to realize she shouldn't wear hoops when she feeds me. But I bet you have those stories too. So where did it all begin? How did I make a slide with all of these things on it? It's like, well, because I was an infant, even in vitro, we're starting the development of all these areas of our being, right? We are collecting information about love and life biologically through our senses, through our smell, the blood rushing through us, all the things that our body can do. This is a time of great growth as an infant. Neurologically, our brain, we know, is not developed until 26. So we're developing neurologically. Our sensations, our regulatory system, right? How are we going to regulate when we get older? It all starts now. And it starts in the interactions of how we're cared for. So we talk about regulation and co-regulation as adults when we get upset, but we're actually learning patterns of how to do that as a child. Just want you to know, as an infant, we're learning that. We're learning how to socialize when we gaze at our caregiver or our parent's face. Are we seeing acceptance, the love? Are we seeing that we're wanted? Or are we experiencing something different? This is our positive self regard comes from that interaction. That's our emotional well-being, right? Our mental capacity. Are we being stimulated? Are we seeing colors that we don't see them fully? Are we seeing shades and seeing shapes? Things that allow us to be in discovery and learning. And of course, if your family has spiritual beliefs, they too are being discussed, right? God bless that she was healthy. Allah blessed us with a son. These things are being shared. We are absorbing them. So infancy is not a passive experience. We are alivened. And this is the classroom of life starts. So I want you to think about that. That is why we're starting here, because your learning started a long time ago. And people want to be like, oh, that's how you always were. Maybe, not really. You've learned to become who you are. Or maybe your partner or spouse will be like, you always did that. Not really. They don't know. They don't know what imprinted on you to become who you are. So this learning is really old. Let's go back to a particular theory. So I said this earlier in the intro, the attachment theory. The attachment theory was done by two scientists, particularly John Bowlby. Later on, Mary Ashworth or Ainsworth, I'm sorry, joined him. And this is really a study around how do kids do when their caregiver is reacting to them in different ways. Meaning, if a child's playing and the parent plays with the child, right, they give one signal. If the parent is so caught up in their own stuff and they're not really paying attention to the child, that has impact on them. If the caregiver is in, out, looking at you, not looking at you, that impacts. And so they start to realize how the child maneuvered and felt about their self and their world was impacted by how their main caregiver or parent was interacting with them. And that became the birth of the attachment theory. So I really love that though I've been studying this for over 20 years, it is now all over social media. Take the quizzes, and I agree, take the quizzes. It helps, but understand this attachment theory or attachment style are on a continuum. Let's talk about the attachment style. Okay. So there's four. And as I said earlier, they all depend on our sense of safety, how we're nurtured, the consistency. Our brain is starting to adapt to what the dynamics are of this interaction. That's where this comes from. If they are stressed, children start to create what we call, you've heard this before, coping strategies, survival strategies. Because if they're not given some consistency, interactivity, availability, parental availability or caregiver availability, they've got to fill the gap. This is unconscious. Children aren't doing this. You're not doing this because you're like, oh, I'm going to fill my gap. But you recognize something's off. Talk about the four types. I'd like to say this. It is a continuum, meaning everyone is secure or leans towards secure. And of course, along the continuum, we have anxious, avoidant, and disorganized. It's not like there's a gradation of better and worse. There's not. You can go this way, but we're all moving towards this. But this is really how do I get my needs met? This is the imprint of how my needs were responded to. And that is why it's so popular right now in the world of relationships, because how they were responded to as a child often impacts my trust of how they'll be responded to now as an adult, how I will ask or not ask to have my needs met as an adult, right? So my trust, my expression of my voice, my vulnerability, my sense of safety is starting in the interactions of childhood. So we often have said attachment theory is actually the biological basis of relationship. Children need adults for everything. They're super dependent on us. So, of course, how we show up impacts them and ultimately will also influence how we then experience relationships later. It kind of makes sense. So one of them, one of the styles, we'll talk about the anxious style, right? Is is really a caregiver who was not consistent. So what that does for a child is it has a lot of them looking for reassurance. In my counseling, often, some spouses will be like, "Oh my gosh, I have to reassure my client, my my client, my wife or my husband all the time. Like, don't they know it by now?" It's not that they don't know it; they know the words, but they really break the connection to them when they're overwhelmed, trauma response, triggered, anxious. It's there's a break, like, because right in their childhood it wasn't steady, so they're going to need reassurance, like, you love me, right? You're not going to leave me, right? Under it is a real fear of abandonment, so they want this closeness, but it hasn't always been there. It's there and it's gone, so it leaves the adult also. Can I depend on it? Can I depend on it? So they come across, sometimes described as very needy. Okay, right? The avoidant. The avoidant is someone who is talked about like, right, they're the ones that step like 1 foot out the door, 1 foot in the door, uber independent, or lone wolf kind of energy. But they crave intimacy, crave it and want it. But they've had emotionally unavailable parents. So where do you go? Where do you go if you have an emotional need, but you don't have a parent there? You don't have somebody, a safe being that will give that to you. So as an adult, we often see that, like I said, somebody who's kind of committed, not committed. God, they want to be all in, but they're looking for signs. And often, as we know, the anxious and the avoidant attract each other. So as the avoidant wants, like, are you going to be there for me? Then the anxious is like, "Uh, are you there for me? I don't know. Can you reassure me? Can you, right? That anxiety actually repels the avoidant. And they're like, oh my God, you're not there for me either, because the anxious is so involved with their own experience, they can't be there or validate. And so for the avoidant partner, they feel like, here it is again. I got no one there for my needs. Right? The avoidant is not great at telling people their needs because they were uber independent. There was nobody to tell them to. Right? And for the anxious, love was confusing. You're there, then you're not there. Ah. So these two often attract, we hear about that. Most likely 90 something percent. Now, the good news is these patterns are not a life sentence. We all are moving towards secure attachment where there was consistency, there was attunement, there's responsiveness. The disorganized attachment style is a combination of anxious and avoidant, but the caregivers were also very unsafe. And that's what makes love very confusing. So you're often will see trauma victims here, right? How could you beat me or sexually assault me and then say it's love? The very person who's supposed to keep me safe has harmed me or allowed me to be with others who are harming. Or they yelled a lot, they scared the child, were loud or violent, or maybe there was an addiction. Again, it's disorganized as a child. They don't really understand what happened, that inconsistency. But over the next 6 months, we are going to talk about these patterns, these attachment styles, and how we move and heal towards secure more and more. And that is a real big piece of this class because I think that's what people are all looking for. It's like, all right, what do we do? Right? I would ask you right now, think back, and what would you say about your caregiver? Were they attuned? Were they present? Were they distant? Inconsistent? Were you not sure when they were going to be there? Not? I know my parents were unavailable emotionally for me. Mother remarried into a very large family when I was a young child. It became 7 kids. Her availability by nature of trying to run a home for 7 kids and, and work full time. No, she wasn't there. Hardly saw my dad. So he also wasn't there. And when he was there, he was either lecturing us or he was 2 to 3 hours late. So again, the consistency, the emotional availability, not intentional, they were doing their life, but it had impact. It influenced what I thought about how people were going to be there for me. And that patterns still show up, particularly when I'm in stress or in real deep intimacy, right? The fears that come up. So people are often like, why around a year and a half to 2 years does it start to get really intense in our relationship? Because at that point, we really are making a decision. Is this the person I could be with long term or maybe marriage? And all of our triggers are coming up. All of our patterns are coming up. We're arguing more. That's what I hear. A lot of couples are arguing more about the year and a half, 2 year, because the wounds, and we're starting to project them onto each other. We're going to deal with that in future classes, right? We all want to do the blame game. If you only stop doing, if you only would listen to me, if you only would take more initiative, if you would only save more money, if you would only initiate sex, they may be very real, but often there's something underneath that. There's a pattern, an unsaid, a need, a request that is not being directly put out there, or it's a very old wound that just keeps getting poked. So, how do we handle the past and the present? That is the journey of conscious relationship. So, let's go on. What do you think about this? What is the relationship blueprint in your family? Let me tell you what I mean by that. So, our parents and family also, right, teach us how to be in relationship. So we have family styles that are really enmeshed, right? Well, they're the family styles that everybody is overly involved, right? Everyone completes each other's thoughts. There's no boundaries. People are people pleasing. No one knows whose need because we're all doing it. I know you needed this. I didn't ask you. It's almost too much. We don't know where the person in the family break out. Really hard in the dating world, right? Because a lot of people will be like, oh my God, your family's too over involved. Here's an example. If you know My Fat Greek Wedding, that's an example of an enmeshed family. Right? And the main character was trying to pull out, but you get drawn back in all the time. And the more you try to set boundaries in the beginning, it looks like you're the bad guy. And she did. The main character in that particular, she had to move out and fall in love with someone who was outside their culture and then reestablish her boundaries on her terms. Yeah, she ended up working at the family diner. That's not a spoiler, by the way. You also have the other types of families that are maybe more emotionally neglectful, right? My father once shared that his mom never said she loved him. My God, his mother died at 94. And I could tell you, in my years, she never said, I love you to me either. Right? So, what does that do? Right? What about the families that are like, don't even check in with you? Don't ask how your day is. How was school? Right? They're just come home. Now just do what you do at home. We eat, we go eat separate rooms, we watch TV. Right? So there are these really spacious families where there's so little connection and interactivity. Of course, there's always families that maybe find that happy medium. They have boundaries, they have distance, they have respect. But what are yours? I grew up in the fat Greek wedding type of family. If we're overly involved, overly emotional, overly verbal, everything was a big deal. I love the line in that movie. I promise this is the last one. Is that when they introduce the gentleman she ends up marrying who's outside their culture, he's like, yeah, I'm a vegetarian. And the aunt goes, go get him some lamb. Right. In that moment, it's a laugh in the movie, but it's exactly that in that family. You don't hear me. You don't hear my needs, my requests. Their need is stronger than yours. So what's that tell you about relationship? Right. So how do caregivers respond to you when you're upset? Was it they come and check in on you? I sensed it. They were tuned and they like, something going on? Or did you have one of those families that were like, suck it up, come on, it wasn't a big deal, right? You always make a big deal out of everything. Or was it a family that didn't see it, didn't see your need, saw you upset, didn't respond, didn't ask? How does that show up now in your relationship? How do you respond? Do you respond the way that they responded to you? Or have you like, I will not be this. If anything, my family taught me what I don't want to be. Possible. What beliefs about relationships did you internalize? Are they safe? Are they going to be a place I can get my needs met? Are they a place that I can be vulnerable? Can I trust that I'm going to be seen, heard, valued, and appreciated? Are they dangerous? Are they loving and nurturing? Hmm, think about that. What did love mean to you as a child? I would like to read something again. What do you think about this? What did love mean to you as a child? Children learn love not through words, but through presence. It is the warmth of a caregiver's embrace, the comfort of their voice, the consistency of their care that teaches a child they are worthy of love. Love is learned in the quiet moments of childhood, when a child's tears are met with understanding, their joys are celebrated, their needs are seen and responded to without judgment. Children learn love by experiencing safety, knowing that no matter what they feel or face, they are not alone. Their emotions are welcomed rather than dismissed. The way they are held, soothed, encouraged as children shapes the foundation of how they understand loving connection for the rest of their lives. Children learn love through the eyes of their caregivers. When they see themselves reflected in kindness, acceptance, and delight, they internalize the message: I'm enough just as I am. What core belief did you learn about yourself? 32 years as a psychotherapist, I have painfully heard I am not good enough more times than I wish I ever heard. Sometimes I hear I'm a burden, I'm a bother, I'm too much, I'm not wanted. But over and over again, I hear I'm not good enough. So the people I've had the gift of working with have not looked into the eyes of their caregiver and felt I'm good enough. Yes. Can you look into the eyes of the mirror tonight and tell yourself that? Can you look the eyes of a family member, your lover, your partner, your spouse tonight and say, you good enough just as you are. And always have been. Mm, that's the invitation. Always. Your worth and your lovability does not change at all. Mm, no. Think about what you've learned about relationships, because that's a pattern that's influencing either from contrast, because I don't want it, or because that's what I knew. And that's what we're always going to be looking at. It's not the only pattern blueprint, but it's a major part of a blueprint that we carry forward and can heal, shift, and transform. It is not a sentence, it's just a blueprint. And as you and I know, there are thousands of blueprints for thousands of homes. There's models for things. There's not one model, not one blueprint. There's not one way. There's not one path. That's the great thing about healing. You get to pick, use, create what worked for you, who you want to be, while integrating who you were. I love this quote about healing. Healing is loving every part of yourself, even the parts that you don't want to be seen. Whoa, think about that. We tend to want to hide the parts of ourselves either that we call shadow or that we just don't like. It's a part that has caused us pain or distress in the past in our lives. I don't want that again. Yeah. The healing is loving all of those. You get to be loved whole. Mm. Thank you for letting me talk about how children learn how to love. Really important part for us to be with when we think about how did we get here in all the beautiful ways. I'm hoping you have fun love and carefree love, and serious love, and joy filled love, and sexy love, juicy love, tender love, friendly love, with so many. It's such an extraordinary experience to embody, to allow yourself to express. Yes, another meditation, but this time we're going to meet your inner child. And why is that important? I intentionally put this in the first class, and there were such beautiful shares in our class, our launch class a few days ago, because we're going to work with the inner child in these 6 months. It's going to be part of your homework. It's going to be part of the story because often, if not ever, almost always, when we're triggered in the present, yes, something's happening to us that's causing distress or harm. That's very real. I validate that. It often is reminiscent of an old wound. So it's like a double hurt. And a great coach that I had worked with once said, the intensity of the reaction now tells us how far back the wound was. Right? So I struggle with inconsistency. I know that. I don't go, but there are times I have gone, because I had to go back and heal what it felt like to have such inconsistency from my father and my mother. It's a trigger for me. If I can't depend on you, you pull in, you pull out, you withdraw so intensely when we're in conflict or vulnerability doesn't get shared. I'm looking for signals of connection, of safety, stability. Yes, within myself, but also in the context here. So, right, that means if I'm like, I needed to, yes, handle what was happening in my relationship, but I needed to also handle, I'm no longer that child, that I can cope differently now. I can share what maybe I couldn't as a kid and be like, wow, when you pull away, like I experience sadness and fear when you pull away, right? I'm experiencing our disconnection and I want to connect with you. Is that possible tonight? Like we want to be able to express it, but as a kid, we can express that. So yes, the inner child meditation is a good time to slow down, sit in a quiet place. If you can dim your lights, I would encourage you to dim your lights. It's going to be in a really calm state of awareness. I ask you to sit comfortably in a way that ideally your 2 feet could be on the ground, your hands could be on the lap. That's fine. Right? I'm ask you to close your eyes, into your nose, slowly release your mouth, breathe through your nose, release slowly to your mouth. Do that. You can breathe in and out. Feel the chair beneath you, supporting you and grounding you. Breathing into your nose, out your mouth. Your attention to your body. Just notice in your attention. Notice what it feels like to put your feet on the ground. Sensation of the air on your skin. Breathe through your nose. What is the temperature of that air touching your skin? The rhythm of your heart and breath. Let yourself settle into this moment. Be present here. Feel a sense of safety. You're safe in being held wherever you are. And in this space, let your mind gently drift back. Yourself as a small child. See where you are. Mm. Notice if in your an old home, familiar place. Have you ever seen this place before? Somewhere else? Around, around and notice what's this space look like? What can I hear? What does it feel like? Warm? Is it cold? Is it brightly lit? The dimmer space. I ask you to notice if there's anybody else there with you. Caregiver, parent, sibling, friend, or if you're alone. Pay attention to anyone's presence or their absence. How does that make you feel? No right or wrong. Just observe. Just observe. Breathing in through the nose, out through your mouth. It feels right. For some love and compassion to this child, this younger part of yourself. You can even want to put your hand on your heart and say inwardly, "Oh, you're safe. You're loved. You are protected." Child, feel your kindness. And let the child know that you're going to come back. If you're going to come back, don't promise if you're not. If you come back to this class, the next class in this course, we will go back. But it's a beautiful practice. Willing to come back. Now, thank that child. Thank you for letting the child meet you today, for sharing the space in which they hang out in. Continue to feel your feet on the ground, your body in the chair, this present moment. Start to shift your focus back here. And take another deep breath in, exhale out. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Mm. Mm. For some of you, this may have been the first time meeting your inner child. It was a very quick visit. Others, you've been here before, it's part of your practice. Very powerful healing work can be done with visiting, talking with, and listening to your inner child. I highly recommend it. Great, powerful source with yourself, shifting, witnessing yourself. Curious as what may have come up for you, what memory, who was there, who wasn't. You sense that there was a need, or maybe your child told you there was a need, or maybe it's a need you've always known you had. Confirmed it when you saw it. I remember the first time I visited my inner child. He was in the corner in a room that had a bed I wasn't near the bed. I was near a corner and I was very, scrunched into the corner. You couldn't see my head. My face was covered. It took me many visits before that part of me would look up and actually meet my face, and even more times before he would allow me the trust of holding her hand. And it was all worth it. I often like to tell people it's very fun to shop with your inner child out, by the way. I'd recommend it. Not always being the adult, maybe allowing your inner child to have some shop. Mm. Right. What did you discover? Mm. Is there any childhood memories that stood out? Anything your inner child needed from you? What did your caregivers teach you about love and trust? I knew I was loved. Never questioned, still don't question my parents' love. But I also know it wasn't consistent, it wasn't attuned, it wasn't focused on my needs. And I understand now why when I look back as an adult. Completely understand it. As a child, mm, much more challenging, much more challenging, right? And when those patterns come up of how my parents treated me, it's not going to look the same, but if I sense it's similar, my body, unconscious to me, will sense a threat and it can dysregulate me. It happens to all of us. We don't even realize it, right? It could be even in a movie or in public when we hear someone say something that maybe one of our parents did when they were upset with us. Like we kind of go to attention. Now, sometimes it comes and goes. Sometimes it can actually throw our mood off for a while. Just that, what you notice, what you discover. Hmm, yeah. Because there's all different patterns that come out of it, right? There's ones that, we have patterns where we know how you got acceptance and encouragement. I'm an achiever, lots of certifications and degrees. The first to go to college. That was a way I could secure attention and love. I often say I'm a people pleaser in recovery, but I know one of the patterns for me was, that fear of abandonment or lack of attunement. A lot of people I have counseling with don't trust very well because they've been harmed by the very people they love or they witnessed harm. I have several clients who struggle in their relationships because their parents had affairs and they knew about it. So as a child, what does that tell us about relationships and love? With parents who harm or say nasty things and never apologize. What's that tell us about accountability? He accuses us. I have to say I'm sorry every time I hurt my brother, but you say something nasty to me and you never apologize. Like, right? Like it's double standards. We're picking that up as kids. We learn these patterns. And what I will say, and I've spoken to this several times in other workshops, the fear of abandonment or loss is underneath both the avoidant and the anxious attachment. It just shows up so different. And if you're anxious or avoidant, you know it. It's both present for both. How we display or protect ourselves and our vulnerability look different. That's also why we get attracted. Because underneath it, both know they want to be in connection and love with each other, right? But they also have their fears. They don't want to be left with inconsistency or unpredictability, and the other don't want to be left because of that either. Mm. Be frightened by their love. And that's what we're going to go and deal with in the rest of this course. This is why this is a foundation. The more tuned we are as we move forward, we know where we're going to start to talk about healing in these classes, and you'll at least have some of these pieces worked out. So I encourage you to take the attachment exam. Think about your childhood in terms of your inner child. What do they need? And what have been the patterns, the blueprints that I have learned from my family? All going to be important. Because, right, we all have this opportunity to make a small change. It starts with us. Even though we're in relationship, if they change, then I'll change. No, you want something different, you need to be the context for it. And so are you somebody who's always judging yourself and others? If you judge others, it means you're judging yourself. Some people don't judge externally as much, but they're harsh to themselves. Can we elicit some more compassion? You're doing the best you can. You're learning, you're growing. You don't have all the answers, and that's okay. Can we extend some grace to someone that there's mistakes and apologies that were sincere? Can I trust and give you another chance? Can I rebuild with you? Is there accountability here? And I asked for a need in a session today where this 30-year-old woman is really clear. She doesn't ask for a need. What does that do over time? When you go along with, right? You don't get what you want. You do what everyone else wants, or you say your need this small, this quietly, and no one hears you. That's the best they can do is speak it quietly. Someone gets to hear her. And today her partner heard her. That's a healing moment because that's her birthright to have her needs heard, and she gets to have the strength to express. So can we ask for need or some reassurance? Can you set a boundary? If you're in a family that has no boundaries, a relationship that has loose boundaries, can you set one from kindness, not like stay out, right? I love what Brene Brown says. A boundary is a space in which I can love you and me at the same time. They are never to keep someone out. It's how do we stay in relation together. I also call it like a fence. Put a fence around this relationship or around yourself. I mean, remember, 7 kids in the house, very little boundaries. That meant doors got opened. No one knocked, right? I'm very big on that boundary now, by the way. I I need people to honor my space. I don't close the door or lock, but when I do, I get a knock, get an okay to come in. Can you set a boundary anywhere? Regulate before speaking. We're going to talk a lot about regulation, grounding, calming, whatever word you'd like to use. But because we have been also in social media has been great talking about like the polyvagal nerve, which the vagus nerve, I mean, is right here in the back of our brainstem, right down to our toes. But the polyvagal theory talks about that nerve, right? When tightened, which all happens automatically, it dysregulates. Some people dysregulate and get heightened, like there's alarm, they're high, they're in ventricle. We got to bring them down. Right? Some go to dorsal, which is really low energy. We need to bring their energy up. And so we're going to talk about that. So what does it really look like without all the science? Yeah, we just did some deep breathing. That's regulating. 17-second hug. It's whatever you do to bring calm to your system and reassurance. Right? Some people put on music. Some people hum or sing. Some people sit in silence. People may take a walk and move their body. Some people may do, we call it helicopter arms in somatic practices, and shake off. Some people go into their Wonder Woman stance. Best regulator, the breath. And one of the other great ones is humming and singing because they're the closest to the vagal nerve. So can I regulate before I speak? That's massive change in patterns. A lot of people just have their reaction and then it harms sometimes the relationship, the other person and themselves. Like, so I come from a regulated point because when the vagal nerve is tight, we are no longer in our executive function and logic, right? We are in our emotion brain. That's not effective in that moment. I often say when you're upset, reactive, triggered, or in a trauma response, you are cognitively offline. If you know that, you could see your behavior. Don't start talking. Take a moment. Just got to breathe. Or can we breathe together? Can we dance together? Can we stand back to back together? Can we fully regulate? So, one small step you can take to shift the pattern in your life. That is the invitation. But you should know there's homework that's coming. My last thought on love is in every conceivable manner, the family is the link to our past and the bridge to our future. They are. They are the building blocks, the architects. And that's always not our family, I mean just our parents. You have generations in your family. If you're a family made through adoption, there may be some gaps in that. And as a parent, you're bringing your generations with you. As a child, as an adult, we're bringing generations. So think about that. The family is the link to our past and a bridge to our future. Yeah. So in our class today, a little brief recap, talked about attachment styles, the foundation of how we relate, how we get our needs met, and how we experience our world. And that is really shaped through the interaction through our caregivers. We talked about some very briefly childhood experiences and the recognition that we have patterns and they are starting from infancy, right? We are learning and taking up information of how to relate, and it is informing and forming our patterns, right? Do the homework as we get ready for February 18th class, which is the third Tuesday of every month. So February 18th at 7:30 p.m., we'll have our next class. And I encourage you to do some homework. I would learn about your attachment style, journal about it, and where do you see that playing out in your current relationship? Observe a relational pattern during the week. Again, be an observer. And I really like this piece. If anything, go find a picture of your younger self and keep it. I keep mine over here. I keep a small one in my bedroom. I think it's important because when we're talking to ourselves, sometimes we need to talk lovingly towards that part of ourselves. So I would encourage you to get that. I hope you enjoyed this. Right? If you're interested in learning more about working with me, my website is www.imclaudine.com. I have a retreat coming up in October, Awakened and Aligned, and that will be a mixture of somatic, breath, and experiential activities. It's really going to be a deep dive into loving over your lifetime. And I have coaching packages. I'm always delighted to meet and assist other people. If you have questions or anything, please reach out to me. I thank you for sitting through this replay summary. Right? You didn't have a chance to share as vulnerably, but for those who did in the first launch, I thank you. And it was my honor. And I'm glad that we could protect the vulnerability and the intimacy of things you shared that night. And I welcome you back to our next class in February. And I hope that you will consider exploring and getting curious with yourself in any way you can. Thank you and have a really wonderful day, evening, week. Be well.